available on the market. So inventory has stayed very much so consistent. In today's video, yet another edition of the TREB monthly resale report, where I go through the most important trends, numbers, and facts that you should know. Hello everyone, this is Sam from SaberiSixRealEstate and Remax Realtron Realty Inc. Back with another video for you guys here today. As always, you can find my contact information in the description box with regards to my Gmail, my Instagram, and my off. Feel free to go find me on Instagram or connect with me via Gmail or my office information if you have any further questions about content covered in this video, any past video, or if you have any general inquiries about the Toronto/GTA real estate market. And lastly, as I always say, your support with regards to a subscription and a like on this video is always appreciated, and feel free to comment your question and suggestions as well. Anyways, enough of that. Let's get on with the topic of today's video, which, as I aforementioned, is the TREB resale report for the month of June. Now, at the date of recording of this video, we're about 5 days into July. So in this video, I'm going to go through some of the major facts and trends with regards to detached, semi-detached, different areas, compare them to the preceding month. So a month-over-month analysis in terms of comparing numbers from June to May, and also comparing months from June 2021 to June 2020, so we can get a very good idea of the major trends from different perspectives. Let's start with the biggest and most general numbers, as we always do. The first metric we're going to look at is total residential transactions. When we look at it year over year, we see that in June 2021, with regards to the Toronto real estate market and GTA real estate market, we saw an increase of 28% as compared to June 2020, going from 8,000 in the preceding year to 11,000 in June 2021. However, when we look at it compared to May, so now we're doing the month-over-month analysis, we see that things are actually pretty steady, if not a little bit down by a negligible amount, because in May 2021, we had 11,951 transactions. Once again, 800 transactions is a marginal, negligible amount. However, it's still down, right? Percentage-wise, number-wise, it's still down. What does this tell us? And this will be a common theme. I will repeat myself because, once again, I want to establish this theme here as the numbers show us that compared to last year, year over year, the market is hotter, the market is up. However, this can be a little overinflated because of the worries due to the worldwide event that occurred last year and we were going through in the last summer of 2020. Point being, the market is stronger in the summer versus last year, but compared to May, things are slowing down. Now, you have to take into account that this metric, total residential transactions, accounts for all residential transactions. As we will go on later in the video, we will break down residential transactions with accordance to different property types. So semi-detached, detached, townhome, and condominiums. Continuing, let's take a look at the average selling price. Year over year, the average selling price was up 17%, up from $931,000, and this year we're looking at $1,089,000, with reference to, obviously, once again, the GTA real estate market in terms of average selling price. However, our common theme continues, wherein if we look at it as a month-over-month analysis, comparing June to May, prices were down. Once again, not a lot, right? In the grand scheme of things, the difference here is not that much. However, it is still down, and we still have to make note of it. And this is the same story I have been establishing according to the numbers. Things are down in June compared to May. This market is slowing down. And if we look at May compared to April, it was the same thing. It was the same case. This is why I think it is better to be a buyer in this current moment, because you have a more buyer advantageous market for all property types. However, more in reference to detached and freehold property types, actually, because as we will cover later in the condo section of this report, things for condos are looking a little bit more steady. Point being, for all property types, but especially freehold property types, right now is a better time to be a buyer as opposed to maybe the fall winter market. When we look at total new listings, it's pretty much even. The difference here is 0.01%. 0.01%, where there is a dip of 0.01% in terms of the total number of listings available on the market. So inventory has stayed very much so consistent. And I think this consistency in terms of a lack of fluctuation in terms of new inventory actually benefits buyers and sellers alike. In fact, I would probably have to say it benefits sellers a tiny bit more than buyers. Because although, as I previously established, it is a buyer advantageous market right now, obviously I wouldn't say it's a complete buyer's market. However, it is a better time to be a buyer. The only downside of that is that when things are that slow, your options are somewhat limited as a buyer. And on the flip side of things, when inventory is this even, sellers are facing less competition. As a result, if you do have a very properly priced property and you've taken good care of it, it's advertised right, you're working with a good agent that knows what they're doing, you can really stand out in the market, especially in the specific couple of blocks. Because when we're buying and selling for clients, we really have to get specific and look at the specific areas in terms of just a couple of streets, right? To know what we're talking about. At a general level, it can give you a clue, but to really do good work for buyers and sellers, you have to get as specific as possible. As a result, you can really stand out in this slow market due to the lack of competition as a seller. But of course, on the converse of that, it comes with probably less showings. You're going to get less showings. And the fact is, at a general average level, your property will probably stay on the market for a bit longer than normal, if we're especially comparing it to, once again, April, March, and a couple of weeks into May. And speaking on that, days on market, we see that days on market, once again, comparing it to June of 2020, is down 34%. However, when we compare it to May, we see that it is actually up by 2 days. Once again, small, negligible amount, but it is noteworthy and it does tell us something. It does establish a trend in the market. A slowing market, more buyer advantageous. It's slower for both sellers and buyers, but yet it is not a complete buyer's market. Yet I will not go as far as to say it is a buyer's market. It's just inching towards a more moderate market. All right, now let's get into more specific sales figures. First, we're gonna look at TREB areas at large, which pretty much for our purposes, you can think of TREB areas as the entirety of GTA. And then after looking at all TREB areas, which pretty much once again is equivalent, not literally, but functionally to the GTA, we're gonna then look at prices by property type in the city of Toronto, and then prices by property type in the rest of the GTA, so York region and other areas. Starting with all areas. Now, when we break it down by property type, once again, we should establish a theme here. We should see what the numbers tell us. And it is the case that all property types are down with the sole exclusion of condominiums. In June of 2021, we see condos at 683. In May of 2021, the preceding month, we see 682. Once again, pretty much functionally speaking, even numbers. So we can't really say, although it's an increase of $1,000, we can't say it's increased because once again, it's $1,000. It's a very small amount. However, as opposed to all property types, it's held steady. At minimum, we can say it's held steady. And if you go look at this series of videos I've made all the way back to March, February, up to now, there is a inverse relationship that I have been seeing with condominiums and freehold properties, where now people are shifting towards condominiums. Condominiums are holding steady. And in part, this also has to do with the fact that in slower markets, although everything slows down, what gets transacted the most typically is the cheapest priced parts of the inventory, and we can look at that as condominiums, as is the case now. This is excluding other influencing factors, obviously. Once again, people who were looking for freehold properties now shifting towards condos, being priced out of the freehold properties. Now, for all the other property types, the drop is in the same range of $7,000 to $15,000. And let's be honest, it's not that big of a drop either. We are really truly talking around the margins here. Yet nonetheless, condominiums have increased, at minimum held steady, and all other property types have fallen in average sold price. Now that was for all areas. Let's move on to, as I said previously, the city of Toronto, the 416. And guess what? We kind of see the same thing with an exception where semis actually saw a fall in average price much higher than the range that has been established thus far, because for townhomes and detached properties, we see that it is in the same range of $7,000 to $15,000 to $20,000. However, the dip in prices we see in semi-detached properties is outside of the normal range here. Yet what do we see with condominiums? Once again, $1,000 increase month over month from May to June. So condos have held steady. And you have to understand another influencing factor here is that a lot of the selling frenzy that occurred for freehold properties in March and towards the early of April, although the selling frenzy continued in April, there was a section of the freehold sellers that were actually downsizing. A lot of older people who were on big lots were seeing prices go up substantially. They weren't the exclusive, majority of the sellers, but they were a good portion of the sellers that I actually worked for. Many of older people, baby boomers, that were actually selling to downsize. And when people downsize, they downsize into condos. And that is actually a trend that I myself kind of underestimated. And I think this, in conjunction with, once again, investors kind of jumping back in because rental rates are going higher, the rental market is recovering slowly, and what I mentioned previously in terms of, buyers shifting their focus into condos. I think all these confluencing factors are providing a certain amount of integrity to the condominium prices, helping them stay steady. Now, this is for the city of Toronto. Later in the week, when I do my weekly condo market update, I will break down numbers into even more specific areas and break down other stuff as well, the latest news and trends with regards to condos. So when we break down the city of Toronto, we may actually see different trends. And at the end of this video, I'm going to quickly cover downtown Toronto numbers. Now let's move on to the 905, where we once again will break down the prices by property type. And here we will see once again the same trend, but a little bit more consistent. The range of prices month over month that have dipped in terms of detached, semi-detached, and townhomes, the range is much less, right? As you can see from the numbers. However, the increase of condominiums is much larger than we saw in overall areas, which obviously accounts for these numbers as well, right? These numbers are accounted in the first portion when we broke down the sold prices by property types. And also the range here is much larger than obviously when we looked at Toronto, the 416. When we looked at 905, once again, we see the same common theme, everything down except condominiums, but condominiums are up a bit higher and everything else that is down a bit less. I have long said that York region, and now I'm actually adding Mississauga into that, is one of the best places to invest for condominiums. Not for perhaps the biggest return in the shortest period of time, because Toronto is still the best place for that, but for a safer bet and a more likely chance of a positive cash flow in terms of rental income. And once again, the prices stay pretty steady. And I see, areas in York region, more central areas in York region, such as Richmond Hill, becoming the new North York in maybe 2023, 2024. It's already trending in that direction. Now let's look at condo numbers exclusively with regards to C1, which is downtown Toronto. Obviously C8 is downtown Toronto as well, but we're just going to look at C1 in this video. As I said, later on in the week when I do my weekly condo market update, I'll have way more condo specific numbers, way more detailed condo specific numbers, and more news and trends. Now, what do we see with according to the numbers? Prices have fallen by $40,000 in downtown Toronto for condos. So how can it be that in the city of Toronto at large, prices are actually pretty even, if not a bit higher? Because when we look at central Toronto exclusively, in central Toronto, month over month, prices are actually higher by $4,000 in terms of the average sold price for a condominium. And once again, as we established in this Toronto at large, prices are higher or by $1,000, but pretty much steady. So why is this the case? But here we see the opposite. Downtown Toronto prices are down. We can derive two things from this. One, as I said previously, downtown Toronto is a very volatile market for condominiums. When it's slow part of the year, as is the case in the summer, things fall. When it's a hot frenzy market, things shoot up higher. Number two, what I also derive from this as well is the average sold price for condominiums at a City of Toronto level and a Central Toronto level would probably be higher than it already is if we were to remove the downtown Toronto numbers, which is dropping the average. It's obviously downtown Toronto C1 is included in all the numbers, it's figured in. So clearly it's weighing down the averages here. So anyways, this is Sam from SaberiSixRealEstate at RE/MAX Realtron Realty Inc. As always, you can find my contact information in the description box. Feel free to get in touch with me if you have any further questions about the things we've discussed in this video or any other video. Lastly, feel free to subscribe, comment, rate, and review. Your support in that regard is always appreciated. And as always, stay tuned and stay safe. Thank you very much for watching.